Welcome to Brother Miller's Notes. Today we're going to look at Jacob chapter 1 through 4. When your parents can't sleep at night and they're staring at the ceiling, what do they worry about? I think my parents still worry about me. They've not stopped being my parents. I don't know, maybe they've got a reason to. But if your parents could see anything about you in the future, what would put their minds at rest concerning you? That's Jacob. When you start looking at Jacob, you start thinking, hey, what's worrying him? What would put his mind to rest? Because in Jacob chapter 1, verse 5, it starts off, because of faith and great anxiety, it's truly been made manifest unto us concerning our people, what things should happen to them. I thought a lot about that, and kind of, in our context, what could we do for our parents that may make them sleep a little bit easier, even if you were in your 50s? Or maybe a little bit more on a local level, what could I do for a Relief Society president? What would help lighten her load and let her sleep a little easier? What can I do to help my bishop rest a little easier? Maybe because there's so much weight on a prophet, what could I do to help the prophet sleep a little easier, rest a little bit better, not be as concerned about the future of me, my family, and the church? Well, I love some of the verbiage that Jacob gives. For him, he says that he's labored diligently, and some of the things he's done in laboring diligently is to persuade to come to Christ. He wants everyone to partake of God's goodness. He wants everyone to enter into the rest that really is provided by the Lord. And so often, we need to remember that if we're going to do that, our errand first needs to come from the Lord, not our own doing, not what we think is best, not what maybe, and sometimes worrying us, but maybe what's on the Lord's mind. And we need to do it in a way that magnifies our office. And I'm going to pause right here and make an editorial comment, because sometimes verse 19 is often applied just to one specific set of people. President Kimball taught, before we came here, faithful women were given certain assignments, while faithful men were foreordained to certain priesthood tasks. While we do not now remember the particulars, that does not alter the glorious reality of what we once agreed to. You are accountable for those things which we long ago were expected of you, just as those we sustain as prophets and apostles. The Lord does not ask about our ability or inability, but only about our availability. And if we prove our dependability, the Lord will take care of our capability. So I just add something there. Maybe it's magnifying not just an office, but whatever calling we have. It doesn't matter where we serve, but how we serve. Even if it's just simply our ministering, our personal ministry, our personal discipleship, magnify that. Make it better, make it greater. If anyone's eyes are on it and scrutinize it, make it be looking good. Because we do take upon ourselves the responsibility to help other people. And I think we take upon ourselves, we answer in part, if someone's doing something wrong because we don't have the courage to say anything about it, we answer the sins of the people upon our own heads if we do not teach them the word of God with all diligence. And I love what Jacob teaches, because if we have labored diligently, if we've obtained our errand from the Lord, magnified our ministry, then we will have helped all men and women believe in Christ. Help the view or others understand about the atonement of Jesus Christ. Be able to help them suffer their cross, suffer his cross. Two great cross references. 3 Nephi 12:30. That may be something everybody writes in their scriptures if it's not already there, where we deny ourselves of things of the world. We deny ourselves of maybe the lusts of the world. And that's like putting a cross for us. Just like the cross of Christ was difficult for him, those personal favorite sins of ours are difficult for us to get off. And in chapter 23, verse 6, is maybe one that's a little bit more personal because of the application. For a cross is compared for that person a difficulty to pray out loud. For that individual, they were afraid to pray in public. And Christ recognized maybe something really simple to me because I can get up and pray, is very, very difficult for someone else. And maybe that's their cross. We need to be a little bit less judgmental and not worry about their crosses, maybe just ours. Because if we do that, it helps us bear the shame of the world. Just like we've studied in Lehi and Nephi's dream, we're not just tasting of the tree, we are partaking. And when we partake of the tree, of the fruit of the tree of life, it helps us to bear the shame of the world. We're not embarrassed by it. So maybe just the thing to be asking is, hey, what's worrying our leaders? What's worrying our parents? How can we help today to help them? Now, another theme that Jacob talks about is a path to sin. And this is probably maybe when you start making connections and you're teaching this in family or in groups, in classes, put people into groups, especially with those type of connections. You say, okay, in your group, here's this, look for a path to sin. Because for Jacob, it starts in your thoughts. Then it enters into your hearts, it causes pride, and it's fueled on by a lack of understanding. You don't understand the doctrine. And when you get that sin and you're kind of entrenched in it, you seek to excuse yourself. Samuel Smiles said it this way: sow a thought, reap an act. Sow an act, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a character. Sow a character, and you reap an eternal destiny. And President Spencer W. Kim was often fond of making that quote. Another theme that's in with Jacob, and probably the one talk that I remember that I just love, was President Ezra Taft Benson's talk on pride. Beware of Pride. It's 1986. More recently, President Uchtdorf has said the great enemy of charity is pride. Pride is one of the biggest reasons marriages and families struggle. Pride is short-tempered, unkind, and envious. Pride exaggerates its own strength and ignores the virtues of others. Pride is selfish and easily provoked. Pride assumes evil intent where there is none and hides its own weakness behind clever excuses. Pride is cynical, pessimistic, angry, and impatient. Indeed, if charity is the pure love of Christ, then pride is the defining characteristic of Satan. And pride does come before the fall. For Jacob, it's simple. Pride destroys your souls. And this may be a great group topic, a family topic. How does pride destroy you? Not what has pride destroy others. How can it destroy our soul? And if that's the case, what's the antidote? Now, President Benson, President Uchtdorf, they talk about antidote of it. Very simply, for C.S. Lewis, true humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less. Boy, that is just a fruitful discussion to have on pride and its antidote in your family. Now, maybe turning to it heavier. This is Jacob's heavier topic that really is a danger of our day. President Ezra Taft Benson said, the plaguing sin of this generation is sexual immorality. For us, we see it in our commercials. Sex sells. And it's pervasive. It seems like over half, I read a statistic, over half of our sites on the internet have some sort of pornography on them. This, the prophet Joseph said, would be the source of more temptations, more buffetings, and more difficulties for the elders of Israel than any other. And you know what? It's not just the elders. But in this chapter, Jacob uses words to discuss and talk about immorality and its effects. Verse 22, he talks not just being gross, but grosser. In 28, he says it's abomination. Verse 29, we're cursed with immorality. It curses the land itself. Verse 31, it causes the mourning, particularly those of the tender-hearted, the mourning of the daughters of Zion. And then verse 35, it causes hearts to be broken, confidence to be diminished, and with many hearts have died, pierced with deep wounds. I've never known the effect of immorality to be anything else. Pain, loss of confidence, and deep wounds. Now, those are some really heavy topics. And as you're teaching or you're reading along, I think sometimes we really just need to take a break and realize that people, prophets like Jacob, know these are heavy topics, but when you talk about them, sometimes we get too enamored in our classes, and this is our focus, and there should be a focus here because that's Jacob's focus. We're trying to be true to his intent. But he also pauses to say, hey, what about the pure in heart? In your family, as you're reading through this, in your class that you're teaching, my guess is there's some purity in the heart. And Jacob does a little aside and says, hey, I recognize that. Chapter 3, verse 1, and behold, I, Jacob, would speak unto you that are pure in heart. These are tough things to talk about. Here's my counsel to you who are pure in heart. Look unto God with firmness in mind. Pray unto him with exceeding faith. And he will do this for you. He will console you in your afflictions. And Jacob knows what he's talking about. If you remember, Jacob chapter 2, verses 1 and 2, Father Lehi says, you've had a lot of suffering in your youth because of those knothead brothers of yours, Laman and Lemuel. And then he says that God will consecrate your afflictions for your gain if you're putting your faith in him. You look to him, you pray to him, and Jacob is testifying because of his own experience. He will console you in your afflictions. God will plead your cause, and he will send down justice for you. He adds, for those in the pure in heart, once again, it's hard sometimes, but lift up your head. God's word is pleasing. It's refreshing. It helps you receive it. Don't just nibble, but feast on his love. As I teach these chapters, I make sure and focus there because every class I teach, I've got the pure in heart, and I want them to know, stay pure, focus on God, look to him with firmness of mind, pray with exceeding faith, stay pure. Now, another theme that Jacob talks about is one that's often talked about, I think, in the church, and I would guess that every single person who's going to hear this has heard this phrase, looking beyond the mark. Some seek to substitute Caesar's for Christ. Others are blinded because they look beyond the mark when the mark is Jesus Christ. As Elder Neil A. Maxwell, the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, pointed out, the Jewish people rejected the gospel, in part because it lacked adequate intellectual embroidery. We look beyond the mark when we refuse to accept simple gospel truths for what they are. In the beginning of chapter 4, Jacob talks about not looking beyond the mark, but he gives some help so that you can hit the mark. And sometimes there may be a tendency to blow by that and not think of it in those terms, but you look at what he's saying that may help you hit the mark. Like in verses 4 and 5, he talks about worshiping the Father. Worship every Sunday helps us hit the mark. Verse 6, search the prophets and the revelations and the spirit of prophecy. You could have a great discussion on how prophets help us hit the mark. Now I'm skipping to verse 8 and 9. Verse 9, the power of the word. There is power in what God says that helps you hit the mark. In verse 10, seek to take counsel from the hand of God. Helps you hit the mark. Verses 11 to 13, I know I'm skipping a lot, but verse 13, behold, my brethren, let him that prophesieth, him that prophesy, to the understanding of men, for the Spirit speaketh the truth, and lieth not, wherefore it speaketh things as they really are, of things as they really will be. Hey, the truth as it is, truth leads you to hit the mark. Look at hitting the mark, and what Jacob says, here's how to hit that mark and not be in your life one who misses it. So today I just gave a couple ideas for teaching these chapters. First, there's a way you personalize it. It's not Jacob's ministry. It's not Jacob's duty. It's not Jacob's responsibility. But take it from his errand to your errand of the Lord, your personal ministry today. Another thing that I just kind of talked about is using group work, especially when you want to make connections between different topics, different thoughts, different doctrines, as you're kind of going through different principles. For example, like thoughts leading to actions, or your antidote. You talk about pride, antidotes to pride. Never forget, you teach some of God's wonderful, great people who are pure in heart. Now I realize the only one who was ever pure in heart all the way was Christ. But we live among greatness and people who have great faith in Christ, who spend a lot of time doing the right thing. And sometimes it's good just to say, thank you. Thank you for being an example to me in my life. I appreciate you're working so hard and you're staying pure. And number 4, when prophets teach a principle, often around it, they're teaching how you can achieve that principle. So don't look beyond the mark. He's going to be teaching you, here's some ways not to look beyond the mark. Don't just be going through the motions. Kind of like if you're going to be shooting a bow and arrow, don't just be looking at it, just going through the motions, but really follow through and hit the mark. Thanks for spending a little time with me today. I appreciate it. And I hope you have a wonderful evening or day or whenever you're watching this. See ya.